I am Councillor Neil MacDonald, leader of Ipswich Borough Council, and have been elected as chair of this group. This virtual meeting is being streamed live on YouTube to allow the public to watch our discussions and the decisions we make. We have received apologies for absence from Roseanne Winberg and CJ Green. Are there any others, please?
Chair, I've received apologies from Maddie Baker Woods this morning as well.
Thank you for that, Ainsley. Right. We'll now move on to agenda item 2. We now have a request for funding from the SPL pot for Youthwatch Suffolk, and that is for £47,479, a very precise number. And I would like to invite Andy Jacob to speak and briefly introduce this request. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I don't know to what degree you would like me to express the request. I do have something I can read from. How much time would you like me to use?
If you could just give us a brief overview. I mean, we did have quite a detailed discussion when we met you before, but maybe you could just take us through the key points and the key ask. Okay,
thank you. So 2 years ago, you yourselves, not necessarily in person, but your predecessors very kindly agreed to fund the very first 2 years of a Youth Watch in Suffolk. And the money that was requested then is essentially the same now. We used that money to employ a 2-day-a-week project officer, Izzy Morath, who was also at university at the time. And what we're asking for this time is for a further and a final 3 years to continue to employ Izzy in the role that she's been working in. The Youth Watch in Suffolk is unique, but it's not unique to the country. There are something like 12 or 13 other Youth Watch across the country, but I don't believe there's one in a county setting, which is quite difficult, as you can imagine, to bring about. The important aspect of having a Youth Watch supporting what we do as a Health Watch, and we're a statutory body with health and care expectations and statutory powers, is to bring about that young person's point of view, that perspective. And they've already, as a small group of people, already proven themselves in affecting change, even in the first 2 years. And bearing in mind that first year, we still had quite a lot of pressure on our society because of the pandemic. So meeting together was a challenge in the first place. We try not to meet too often in person. We have a very light environmental footprint as an organisation, and we like to keep it that way. But we did meet quite recently again in order to talk about the next year, should funding be agreed today formally. And by the way, the funding, you mentioned the exact figure. It is based precisely around that project officer's time and the cost of employing Izzy. And it comes down to something like £2,000 an organisation per year amongst you. So we're not asking for too much, and we think we could actually bring about quite a lot of change. One of the examples I would give, there are numbers I could do, but one I gave last time is we have an ongoing project with schools and colleges at Health Watch. Just completed year 7, we're about to be planning for year 8. And in this last year, when Youth Watch had an influence on the kind of questions that we asked and how we asked them, and to promote the survey and the lesson plan, we had a bumper return. And I don't think it's a coincidence. So we had over 13,000 young people aged 11 to 19, or up to 24 if they have special educational needs, responding to the survey from across 27 schools and colleges. About 8 and 10 schools and colleges have over the years been taking part in our work. So Youth Watch really does hold a value. It brings a perspective that we don't have as adults. It's not easy to engage young people on health and care. Generally speaking, It's something that we as adults make decisions on. It's rare to actually ask young people, and they would actually bring about different kinds of questions, different challenges, and also bring about different opportunities as well if they are engaged. So I hope that you'll agree to continue the funding for the next 3 years. And as I say, we won't be coming back. We're looking elsewhere for match funding. We're looking to hold a really big event next spring, hopefully at the university in Ipswich. The event will look to invite a plethora of young groups out there, everything from Scouts to NYPs and others. 2 of our Youth Watch members are in the process of mapping the entirety of organisations and groups that work with or are led by young people from across the county, and then invitations will go out to each and every one of them. This event will be a launch pad for taking Youth Watch to the next stage. Thank you.
So thank you for that, Andy. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to see the conference and see how it goes. I think that's a great idea. I have 3 hands up, and conveniently Teams these days puts them in order. So I have Tim Passmore first, and then Matthew Hicks, and then finally Caroline Topping. So Tim, over to you.
Thank you very much, Neil, and morning, Andy, and thanks very much for the presentation. I just want to entirely endorse what you said. I think it's a really, really good idea. We have to do more to help our youngsters in Suffolk. And one thing I think is really, really commendable, I think I've got this right, it's not just those who are at school, it also embraces those who've left education going up to the age, was it 23, 24? Very often, in my humble opinion, that age group of sort of 18 to 24, 25 is often missed out. You don't suddenly become an adult overnight when you're 18 years old plus 1 day. But I think anything we can do to help our youngsters, they are our future. They have a bit of a tough time, I would say, collectively at the moment with all sorts of reasons. So you've certainly got my wholehearted support for that, and I hope everybody else will support it. So if you need a formal proposal, Neil, I'm happy to propose that we accept it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Andy, for the presentation. Really, just really for points of clarity for me, really, obviously supportive. Just wondering why you didn't do that round of external fundraising ahead of this round of funding, because we tend not to at SPSL fund the same thing repeatedly. But you've explained that next time you will, so it will be the last time you'll ask for funding. But why didn't that happen now? And can you just be 100% clear that this funding is not replacing any loss of other funding you've received elsewhere as a wider organisation at Healthwatch? It purely will be used for this project rather than filling maybe a budget gap. Thanks.
Thank you. Year 1 was very much about establishing during pandemic, and we didn't really get very far. It was just impossible to meet in person, and in order to get something started from scratch, you really need those face-to-face meetings. I'm sure you all know that when you meet face-to-face, you get so much more done, and it's really important, particularly around project development as well. So we weren't in a position to seek out extra funding. We were really just trying to establish ourselves and trying to make sure that the pre-existing groups out there, everything from 4YP to Volunteering Matters to the Engagement Hub at the council, didn't see it as a challenge, but as an extra, as something that can support them as well as them supporting us. So that was our main focus, was just to establish ourselves, Matthew. But I've already had a conversation with Melanie Craig at Suffolk Community Foundation, and she knows that I'm going to be coming to her to say I'd like some advice about where we can start. But even our board members have said, so one of our Youth Watch members is on our board now as well, joined us in January. She's studying criminology at the university. They are suggesting we could even go for crowdfunding. I mean, there are different options that we might have. And in respect of how the money is used, yeah, there's nothing to do with our core funding. As you know, personally, our funding has shrunk over the years. And we can't find the money within the core funds in order to bring about a Youth Watch. That's why we relied on the money that came in through SPSL originally. And as I say, it's £2,000 per organisation per year over the next 3 years. So it's not a lot that we're asking for, but we think that we could really make a difference over the next 3 years and beyond.
Okay, thank you for that, Andy. Caroline?
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, young people have for several years, but particularly since COVID, been struggling with mental health issues. As Tim said, these young people are our future and they need support. We met Izzy and we were very impressed. I was very impressed by her. Page 6, just to prove that we have read the document, I just want to quote back a couple of the points that you made, which says that your research and engagement overwhelmingly shows that Youth Watch Suffolk has begun to benefit young people across the county. It's run by young people for young people, and it brings focus to issues that affect young people, which might otherwise be forgotten. It's incredibly important that we support this project. I take on Matthew's points that we shouldn't be funding gaps that are being made by anywhere else, but I'm very happy to support you with this, and if you want a seconder, I'm happy to support Tim's proposal. Thank you.
Right, thank you for all your comments and questions. I don't believe we need a proposer and seconder, though we do have one should we need one. Is everyone happy that we allocate the funding? Oh, John, do you want to come in with a question?
No, it was just to reinforce what others had said. It's clearly Popular has a lot of support amongst young people, and the amount of money being asked for isn't a significant amount. It's very good value for money as far as I'm concerned. So happy to support this.
Thank you, John. Andy, you want to come back on that?
Just a couple of things, if that's okay. I'll come back to what Matthew said in a minute, but if I can just read out a short paragraph, which was a quote from Wendy Herber, our independent chair, which I read out last time, and it says, if we are going to address the complex issues that we now face, we're going to need intelligence and inspiration from every part of our community. Perhaps the most excluded from influence are our young people, whose views and experience are vital if we're to address the issues they face and shape a future that works for all of us. These last pandemic years have also marked the lives of young people far more than those who are adults, and we now owe them the best possible opportunities to shape their own futures based on lived experience that only they understand. And in response to Matthew around the funding situation, I should have mentioned this earlier, but the funding that we're receiving, hopefully, is added to by us as an organisation. So all the management or time, or my time, the board time, project team time that support Youth Watch, community engagement team that support Youth Watch as well, all of that remains from our core funding. So that's our, I suppose, match funding towards the project itself.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Is everyone happy to allocate the funding requested? Please raise your virtual hands. Let's see if we can do it properly. And I believe that is unanimous. So thank you very much, Andy, for your presentation. Congratulations on the work that Youth Watch has done. You've certainly had a lot of praise from around the table here. And we'll move on to the next item, which is a request for match funding from the SPSL pot towards Safer Street Round 5. And I'd like to invite Tim to introduce this request.
Thank you very much, Neil. You've had the paper prepared by our team in the office, and following our planning meeting for the request for £150,000. I won't go through the whole paper, of course, but just to refresh everybody's memory, we had the opportunity to match with up to £500,000, £1 million from the Home Office for the Safer Streets Fund. That match funding is a condition of the grant, and it can be made up with payment in kind from time of officers and other people involved in the various projects. But the key to unlocking this actually was £150,000 from the SPSL Suffolk Public Sector Leaders Pool Business Rates Fund. You very kindly gave an indication that you would support that at our previous meeting. And without going through too many details, the track record of the Safer Streets Fund, this is round 5. We've had 3 successful bids over the last few years, all of which have been to the benefit of the Borough of Ipswich, done linking in with the community safety partnerships. And I'm really pleased that this time there was an application from East Suffolk as well as Ipswich Borough and also the West Suffolk CSP. The details are in the papers, and I want to say straight away, if I may, Neil, that we are all really, really grateful to the huge amount of work at very short notice with the rather strange timetable having to do all these things in August when everybody is on holiday. But I really do want to note down, really grateful to everybody's efforts right across the whole of Suffolk for doing this. These schemes will really make a difference to things like lower level crime, antisocial behaviour, neighbourhood crime. Also an emphasis on improving safety, particularly for violence against women and girls. It's been very successful in the Ipswich area for the previous applications. And it is, as the key's in the title, about making our streets safer. So with that £150,000 from Suffolk public sector leaders, it really, really will make a big difference to those areas. The scheme for West Suffolk, I think, is pretty innovative because it does spread, if you like, several mini projects right across the 3 districts and boroughs that we have over there. And I can also say, with the support of various agencies and a huge input from the local constabulary teams as well, I have it on fairly good authority, but I can't absolutely promise because I haven't had it in writing. But the indications are from the Home Office that with this £150,000, we will indeed be successful, and we should have that confirmed very, very soon. And when I say very, very soon, I'm hoping within a couple of weeks. We've had a verbal indication that's like to be there successful, but of course I can't give an absolute guarantee, knowing how you deal with the Home Office, unless we have it received on paper in writing. But to all intents and purposes, if you are happy to support this application, everybody else, I'll be really, really grateful on behalf of all the people who put the work in, and I know it will make a huge difference. And the track record, as I say, for the previous 3 schemes in Ipswich have made a very, very big difference. So I'll leave it at that. It's very good for the whole of Suffolk, but if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you for that, Tim. I would just, amplify what Tim has said about the success in Ipswich, and certainly we've had funding through Safer Streets 3 and 4, and they have made a demonstrable improvement in the areas they worked in. But of course, the trick is, of course, to keep that improvement going, not let things slip in the future. Our one, the Ipswich one, is for antisocial behaviour, and that is a concern in various parts of the town, and it will be good to get some resources to work on that. If anyone has a question, could you raise your virtual hand? And of course, Cliff is straight in there. So, Cliff.
Right.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Tim, very much for that presentation, which was very clear. In fact, you did touch on 2 of the things I was particularly interested in, which are in the Western area. Number 1 was the antisocial behaviour. And although all of us are very lucky to live in a very pleasant part of the country, we are all aware that many of our residents feel very threatened, actually, by what is often quite low level antisocial behaviour, and it is very difficult to deal with. I know, so that focus is very welcome. And the other one that I wanted to particularly highlight was the focus on violence against women and girls, and whether we're men or women, we all have we all know people in our families, people in our friendship groups who suffer not necessarily violence, but the fear of violence. And I know, I was talking, I've had to walk home with fellow councillors from council meetings because they've felt, unsafe. And I think that's something we cannot just let go. So I'm really pleased to see that focus. And I think that the modest cost that you're asking us to put into this is very, it's very money well spent. Just one question though, and you said there is a slight, we're not sure yet, given the way the Home Office works, whether our funding will be matched. If it isn't matched, does the money we're putting in, does it come back to our funds, or what happens to it?
Yes, we would have to send it back into the pot, and then we would have to reply. I am, how can I put it without giving the game away completely? Let me put it, I'm 98.9% recurring confident that it will come through. But you know what it's like, Cliff, with paperwork in government departments. It takes forever and a day. The progress can at times be glacial, which is not terribly helpful. I'm extremely confident without absolutely saying a cast iron guarantee. And I think Neil and I were at a meeting the other day, and I did say, you know, we will be there. And may I make just one other comment, which I forgot to mention, and I absolutely agree with you, against violence against women and girls, coercive control. There are all sorts of things that go into this mixture. And in Ipswich, I'm just going to highlight this. We actually, from our grant scheme as the PCC, we I think it was £30,000 we put in for a combined effort with the borough dealing with safety of women at night a couple of years ago. And I just want to highlight, bearing in mind the terrible situation there was in Croydon with that awful stabbing and fatality recently, we have all collectively got to do a lot more. This is part of these sorts of things. There's a lot more we've got to do. I know we're going to look in our planning meeting at another proposal, but these things are so important. So I really do hope everybody is right behind it. And we will continue whatever with our grants programme in order to support various initiatives like this right across the county. But thanks for your support.
Right, thank you, Cliff and Tim. Yeah, we need a bit of a societal change in dealing with violence against women, you know, really, and certainly the GB News stuff. I mean, that was just appalling, and that just, you know,
Shocking.
Sets the tone, sets a bad tone. Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, very pleased to see that there is an East Suffolk district scheme here with Lowestoft. Very keen on proactive preventative measures rather than reactive measures, and I see the scheme here is supporting 2 interventions, CCTV and outreach activities, working directly with young people. I'm reading this off your report, who are perpetuating or at risk of or perpetrating.
Yeah.
And you're focusing basically on young people who are at risk of exclusion, etc. from school. Fully applaud that. Yes. Any help we can give youngsters that are at risk of exclusion from school that might end up in trouble. However, my point is crime isn't just committed by young people, and
No.
we shouldn't just be sort of like running around saying that crime is committed by young people. It's committed from all ages, and that's not what you're saying in your document.
No.
But I'd like to emphasise that I'm really keen on the support that you are giving to those youngsters that are at risk of being excluded, that might end up in trouble, because then that's with them for life, and it's very difficult to turn their lives around once they've got a record. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for your support. Yeah, I entirely agree with that. Of course, we know that crime is not all committed by young people, far from it. But one of the focuses that we have here, that's not very good English actually, if we can try and break that cycle so it doesn't become so it doesn't perpetuate throughout their life, then that's exactly what we need to do. Obviously, we're doing other things. This was as a result of the work with the CSP and I think some of your antisocial behaviour officers and so on. So I wish we could do a lot more. Obviously, I'm sure we all do. But this is what the focus is on there. Well, we can talk outside the meeting about all sorts of other things we're doing as well. But thank you very much for your support. But yeah, I absolutely endorse what you say. Crime is not committed just by young people, and we do need to be careful we don't stereotype them that all young people are bad and so on, because we mustn't forget, even me, I was young once. So we all were, as John Ward notes.
Right, thank you for that. Rachel, I don't know if you want to come in at all, or if you have anything to add. I'm sure you'll be pleased with the
If I can get off mute, thank you. My mute is as slow as I was to the meeting. Sorry, I came in late and Tim was already doing a sterling job, so I only came in at the end of your presentation, Tim. Apologies, but obviously, as you'd expect, we've discussed this broadly. I very much support a preventative, proactive approach with our policing in Suffolk. We are very fortunate in Suffolk that is the best style of approach, and we achieve a huge amount by what doesn't happen. Of course, as far as valuing the police service and quantifying the value of the police service, sometimes preventing can be a double-edged sword, because we then appear to be a place that nothing ever happens, and that's the problem. But I would much rather favour that approach than pick up the pieces afterwards. So fully support, as you would expect. Tim has done the work on this, so I'm not going to steal his thunder, but thank you for the broader and wider support from partners as well.
Thank you for those comments. We're going to go forward to a vote now. So if you're in favour, please raise your virtual hand. Unanimous. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks everybody very
That
much.
is carried. So agenda item 4 is the budget update, and I now invite Ian Gallen to present an update on our budget.
Morning, colleagues. Thanks, Neil. So really simply, you've got the current budget in the papers. That's remained consistent for the last few meetings, and obviously following your decisions around the funding today, we will update that for your next meeting. Nothing more to add, Neil. Really, thank you.
Well, short and sweet. Any questions for Ian? I see Matthew, you have your hand up. Is that a legacy hand? Yep. So John, you have a question?
Yeah, it's just some clarification, Ian. Just looking at table 1, the business rate pools summary. We're missing some columns which are normally there for financial year 13-14, 15-16, and 16-17, and also in the past we've had a totals column at the right.
Apologies, just looking now. Yes, I don't know if Caroline can help, but if we've not issued the sort of very unhelpful, it's in landscape on mine, I need it the other way around. I'll double check, and if we need to update the papers, John, we will do so.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
Andrew.
Yeah, just a quick question. We have £1 million that was set aside back in 2021 for the Hawley Junction work. I think we're all aware that work needs doing, but there's no progress on it. Is there any way that we can press Network Rail or the government to move that work forward and use that money?
I'm happy to add something, and maybe Caroline might want to as well, or Nicola. But yeah, Andy, we do, and we do through all the national networks as well, through Transport East, through ELGA. You know, we have constantly used that and said, look, SPSL is so keen. We've actually funded £1 million. You know, that's quite unusual for local government to come together to something of that tune. So we keep pushing the message. I think really the best bet is maybe to get Transport East to give us an update on where they're at, because you know they are really the ones leading the charge on these sorts of projects on behalf of us all, is my view. But I don't know if Nicola or Caroline want to add anything.
Yes, if I may, Chairman, thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Matthew. Yes, I think that would be a good idea. But yes, I can just to sort of reinforce what Matthew has said. It is on our agenda all the time. We're pushing hard on it, but I'm afraid it is caught up in a number of reviews that are going on at a national level in terms of road, rail, and other transport investment. But I think Matthew's suggestion is a good one, and I'm happy to liaise with the Chief Executive of Transport East, if that's helpful, Chairman, to bring an update back to our to our next meeting.
Thank you for that, Nicola. That would be great. John?
Yeah, just further on that, I was at NILGA Infrastructure and Growth Panel meeting a few weeks ago, and Transport East were represented there, and it cropped up in discussion, but they got no further information for us, and they didn't sound too hopeful of any progress in the near future. But clearly, I think we do need to keep this money allocated, because at some point, hopefully, it will proceed. Although it is quite an expensive project, about £25 million, I believe. But we just got to keep pushing through Transport East and elsewhere.
Thank you, John. Matthew?
Yeah, just to say, of course, and the other big project which we haven't funded but we need to happen in parallel, is the Ely Junction.
Yeah,
So we really want those
definitely.
both to happen at the same time to really be transformational for us along that line.
Yeah, but Ely is considerably more expensive.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gallen, for that update. And unless there's any final points, that concludes the business for the public meeting.